the heels, let's start with them about mat distance. They're really not going to need to go much further than mat distance, just maybe a couple inches at most. We'll take the hands forward, walk the hands forward, and start to squeeze the knees in and resist the shoulders out. Now, one of the biggest things I see that happens here is that we start to collapse the chest and round the back. We want to find a little bit of the opposite, a lot of the opposite actually. So pull the shoulders back, and let's take the hands to the outside of the feet. So thread the shoulders underneath, the arms through. Squeeze the knees in, resist the shoulders out, pull the chest forward. For many of you, this is just going to be where you stay for right now. And then some of you will reach the arms out to the side. If it's more like your knees are over top of your elbows, you're probably better off here. It's too much pressure on your elbows, and there's still a lot to work through in this position. If you can take your arms straight out to the side, you'll snuggle the shoulders in behind the knees, and then you'll start to straighten the legs out in front of you. Now, I like to have my students reach their chest to the floor before their shoulders get to the floor. So if the shoulders come to the floor first, that means you're starting to collapse in your chest. So pull your shoulders back, get your sternum bone to touch the floor, then you can continue on. And then once the legs are fully straight, you can point the toes and lift the heels up off the floor. And we'll hold here for several breaths. Slight intention to squeeze the knees in against the shoulders. And then we'll release that. Transitioning to Supta Karmasana. We'll just start to come up a little bit, but we don't lose that contact of the knees and the shoulders. In fact, we want to even snuggle in deeper if we can. Then turn the outer edges of the feet onto the floor. Now we get that external rotation. Pull the chest forward. Maybe take the arms back behind you. But if that causes you to collapse too much, work it with the hands on the floor, pulling the chest towards the floor. And then if you can clasp the hands, go ahead and clasp the hands. And for now, we're not going to worry about taking the legs behind the head. This is also a great place to use a strap. If your hands are almost there, you can use a strap and then start to walk your hands together on the strap. Okay, and then let's release that. Coming up out of it. And coming to seated. So that sequence is where we're introduced to legs behind the head in the first series. So that's a really important place to work your practice if you haven't quite gotten that from first series, you're going to want to stay with that. One thing I see that happens is people get too obsessed with getting their legs behind the head there, and they don't put enough emphasis on really clasping the hands together. So my opinion, work the hands first, and then it'll be easy to just cross the legs behind the head. So now we're going to transition to the wall. So we're going to need a bolster for this one. So I mainly use the bolster here. This is where we're going to start working Ekapada Shirshasana for second series. And we want to bring the bolster a little more than about 3/4 away from the wall. 3/4 mat distance away from the wall. And we'll come forward on this side. And the bolster is really so that we can relax into it. So in Ekapada Shirshasana, we're sitting up. We bring our leg back and behind the head, like so. However, in the beginning, if we don't quite have that opening in the hip and the outer leg, it winds up being more like this. And sometimes, like I was talking about, left side body expands, right side body contracts. And it can be a lot of pressure on the neck. Not good. So when I teach this pose, I have you come to the wall. the left foot is really on the wall just for support to keep you from falling side to side. And then we bring the bolster behind the back so that you can rest onto something. And depending on your flexibility, you may want a little more height or a little more lower to the floor. So you can use blankets rather, or a fuller bolster. So we're going to take hold of the ankle and the foot, start to rotate the knee out to the side, and get a sense that your femur bone is spinning out in the hip socket. Then we're going to reach the knee out to the side and start to lean back on the bolster. This may be enough for you. If you can get your shoulder inside your knee, you'll go to that stage. And then some of you may be able to get your head in front of your ankle or shin. Now, one thing that's really important for safety is just to make sure that your toes stay, I'm going to say pointed, and that you don't sickle your foot. You want to keep the outer aspect of the shin bone active here. And then if you have your head in front of your ankle, you can start to press the head back, reach the chest up. But take your time working into this, settling in again to your hip, breathing and not going to a place where you have to force through any discomfort, but more to a place where you can just breathe and settle into it. And then while you're here, if you do have your head behind, in front of your ankle, start to pull the left ribs in towards midline so that you can preserve and keep both side bodies equally long. If you're a little more advanced and you've been doing this, you have open hips, then you start to bring the shin bone down your back and then press the shoulders open. Okay, and then we'll release. And that's a good pose to spend lots of time in if you're working on Ekapada Shirshasana. And then we'll take the left side, point the toe, reach the knee out, so you're finding that external rotation. And then we'll start to lift the foot up. Some of us will stay in this position, continue to pull the left sitting bone towards midline, and you can press the right foot into the wall as much as is needed, and take the right rib cage into midline. And then if you can bring the head and the shoulders in front of the leg, go ahead and do so. And then start to bring the right ribs again into midline. And then you can keep holding on to your left foot with your hand for support, and also so that it's not so much on your neck. Pull the shoulders back. The more we can pull the shoulders open, the less pressure there is on the head and neck. And if you're more advanced, starting to snuggle the shin bone down behind the shoulders.